Hello Internet. I've decided today that I would like to share with you the Fallout 4 factory that I built. I took a lot of time and effort doing this. I'm rather proud of it, so I want to share it. I should start by giving credit where credit is due. Obviously this is Fallout 4. I'm playing it on a PlayStation 4, and I have the Wasteland Workshop DLC, without which, I couldn't build factories. I also have a few mods that I'd like to mention. The first one, all this nice green grass here, is a mod called Simple Green by somebody named Andrew CX. These fancy walls and things that I've built are from a mod called Unlocked Settlement Objects, also by Andrew CX. There's a mod called Scrap That Settlement by somebody named Elric, and that one allows me to get rid of all the weeds and junk and chunks of pavement that otherwise the regular game forces you to keep there. And finally, the heart of this factory is a mod called Manufacturing Overhauled, also by Elric. A neat, or maybe an interesting thing about this factory is that I like to build them as small as I possibly can for the task I've assigned to them. In other words, I don't like big sprawling football fields with just 2 machines in them. You can see this is quite a large factory. It's 4 stories high, and it's, I think, 15 units wide by 10 units deep. So it is quite a large factory, but especially when we get to the second floor here, you'll see it's packed just to the gills with conveyor belts and things. Walk you around it, you can see the outside, the exterior here. I actually had to cut this corner because I was building outside the buildable area. I wish I would have planned that a little better, but what can you do? And this is the back of the building. It's rather plain, but you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. Here's the original shack. Of course, I'm at Starlight Theater. This is the back entrance, the delivery door, and this vacuum hopper right here is really the start of everything that this factory can do. What can this factory do? I built it to break down every single junk item into every single component. So inside there are 31 components in the game, and I have inside 31 component sorters and 31 hoppers for all of those things to fit into. If we look here, I know it's dark, you can see I have a set of lifts going from the 1st floor to the 4th floor. The 4th floor is my manufacturing floor, where I can actually take those 31 components and use them to build things. In theory, I could build everything possible in the game, but in reality I had to limit myself to just those things that I thought I would be able to use the most. So I have 7 building machines up on that floor, which of course I will show you. I have a little bit of a defense here. I don't have any settlers here yet because this factory took up so much of the settlement, what would you call it, the settlement allotment. I had to use the gun glitch to get it all to work, and I probably exceeded the allotment by about 400 or 500%. It's huge. So there's a little bit of a lag whenever I flip a switch or something. It's kind of noticeable. So I don't want to add crops or things like that. They're going to slow it down even more. So what I'm going to do is use the what are they called? The provisioners to bring in crops and water from elsewhere, so that I can eventually bring settlers here. But as of now, it's just me in this building. Okay, so looks like right now everything is turned off. I've got some switches I'll show you The only things that are permanently powered are this elevator and of course the door, the overhead garage door back here that I just opened up. Everything else is off until I flip a switch. This is my power source. This Vault-Tec Super Reactor is from the DLC, the Unlocked Settlement Objects not DLC, mod. The Vault-Tec Super Reactor is from the Unlocked Settlement Objects mod, and it puts out 500 units of power. And when I have everything in the building running, I'm using about 300 of those units of power. So that's quite a bit of power. It's a lot of power that I need. Now these are hoppers, obviously. As I said, there are 31 of them, one for each component. Fiberglass, fertilizer. What is this one? Crystal. They're in reverse alphabetical order here. Cork. And when I'm manufacturing things, they all drop onto this conveyor belt. Which is quite a long conveyor belt. It comes over here. So this is the first 16. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hoppers in this row, 8 in the next row back. So there's 16 hoppers here, and then the other 15 are on the other side of this conveyor belt. So here we have wood, steel, springs, and so on and so forth. And when I drop components onto this conveyor belt in order to manufacture items, they come up to this lift, which is the same one we saw from the outside, and they go all the way up to the 4th floor in order to build things. So let me show you how I do that. As I said, when I start by dropping all my junk. I, travel the wasteland and I collect junk and I put it in here. And there's no actual junk in here at the moment, which is unfortunate, but there are some components. That's okay. I go into the lift, up to the 2nd floor along this conveyor belt, and into the scrapping machines, or the recycling machines, which I will show you. So here we go. I go along this conveyor belt into the first recycler, which is F to Z, the second half of the alphabetical list. The reason I put that one first is because I saved the 16th space. Normally if I had 16 of these, the last 16th hopper would be right here, but of course I saved that space for my lift. So it's just a way of compressing the building just a little bit more because it's already far too big. When these items are recycled, they come along this conveyor belt and to the component sorters. Now if you know this, you can ignore this part. If you have never played the game, what a component sorter does is it, as things come into it along this conveyor belt, it looks to see if the object coming in contains that component. In this case it's fiber optics. So if I was to drop a junk item here that contained fiber optics, it would go down this conveyor belt and into the hopper. If it didn't contain fiber optics, it would continue along. Whoops! Come on! It would continue along this conveyor belt into the next component sorter, which in this case is gears. So if something had gears, it would fall into this hopper, and so on and so forth. So there are 8 component sorters here, and then 7 on that other side, ending with wood. Come on. So this is the last one on this side, wood, and then steel, and again these are in reverse alphabetical order. So the reason that this machine is nice, again from the manufacturing overhauled mod, is that it takes all of these items and it breaks them into their components. The reason this is nice is because if I was to, let's say, drop a hammer onto that conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt would send it through all of these sorters. A hammer is composed of steel and wood. So the hammer that I dropped onto the conveyor belt at any point past that machine would come all the way down here and go through all these component sorters until it hit steel. And then the hammer would drop into that hopper right here. So this hopper would say 778 steel and 1 hammer, which is, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but it means that the wood from that hammer would not go into the wood hopper next door. In fact, when I pulled that hammer out of this hopper to build something, that wood would get stuck in the manufacturing machine. Again, it's a minor inconvenience, but this machine certainly makes it much easier to sort these things. Now, when this recycler, as I said, F to Z, only goes through the second half of the alphabet. So what do I do with things like aluminum cans, which of course yield aluminum, or circuitry and crystal are components in the first half of the alphabet? Well, what happens then when I've recycled out everything, this lead, this oil, silver fork produces silver, steel. When I've pulled all of those things out of this recycler and sent them to the hoppers, I have all this detritus left over, this, you know, aluminum cans and whatnot. Well, that's when I turn on this vacuum hopper. And what this does is it sucks everything out of this recycler and sends it along this conveyor belt to this lift, which then comes right back down here and drops onto this conveyor belt into the second recycler, or the first recycler, depending on how you want to look at it. And this recycler will recycle the fertilizer and the aluminum and all those other things in the first half of the alphabetical list. So start with acid, adhesive, aluminum, antiseptic, asbestos, and so on. So I can sort out everything. And the reason that I have it like this is because by doing this, the two systems are electrically separated, meaning I can turn that machine on independently of this machine, and then I can turn on that vacuum independently of both of them. So once I've recycled everything from this machine, I can turn on the vacuum, pull out all of the other items. They come out here and they get recycled here, so that I can have this machine recycling, let's say, asbestos. If I turn the vacuum off, then I can dump any junk that I might be holding into the starting point down here. I can dump it into this vacuum hopper, and then I can run the first recycling machine independently of the second recycling machine. Now, the reason I would want to do that is because if I turn this vacuum hopper on, like if this vacuum hopper was connected directly to the same electrical power system that was recycling this recycler, then it would pull everything out of here. It would pull the steel, and it would pull the lead, and it would pull all the things that this recycler is supposed to be recycling and put into this machine where it can't be recycled, which is the reason I have 3 separate circuits for these guys. At any rate, once this recycler does its job, all those things, they get pulled and they go along to this, and it's just like the first half of the operation. It goes through the component sorters and gets dumped into whatever is the appropriate hopper. So what's the point? Why do I do this? Well, the reason I do this is so that I can build things, which I can run up to the 4th floor here. I can show you. I have an elevator, but for some reason I don't like to use it. At the end of that 1st floor conveyor belt, I think I showed you the lift. It goes all the way up to these. Goes all the way up to the 4th floor here, and then whatever components, they go to whichever machine I've chosen to use. So there's one machine missing here. This will be my clothing machine. I don't have the perks yet required to build that particular machine, but as soon as I do, of course, I'm going to put another machine here. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then over there are 7 manufacturing machines. The missing one, clothing. This is power armor, explosives, gun forge, another gun forge, a 3rd gun forge, and over here is armor. And each one of these, they just output to a simple conveyor storage, because I was running out of space to put things, really. So each one has its own conveyor storage where the outputted items are kept. You can see I've made some power armor. This was kind of my test run. I wanted to see if I could make different kinds of power armor. Of course I did. And then my one of my gun machines, I made some handmade rifles. And then just for completeness sake, I will show you this. This runs up to the roof. I like a lot of glass. It really, I don't have to light up as much stuff if I have lots of glass. And of course it's nighttime now, but in the day there's a lot to see and I don't need to use my light. Once I do get settlers here, I'm going to make a nice little kind of a picnic area down there on the, what's that, the 2nd floor roof. Pull up my elevator. And the next thing I want to show you is my control room. This is really the heart of the building. And this is, let me flip this switch on. This is where I'm able to control the entire building. I can make anything just by flipping switches in this room. And what I'll do, I'll show you. We're gonna make a set of armor. Let me see what kind of armor I can make. First thing I have to do is go to this terminal. And you can see I have controls for every single machine in the building. So we're going to go to this armor forge control and we're going to tell it that we want to make let's say we want a piece of synth armor medium. So I need aluminum, I need adhesive, I need steel and ballistic fiber. But I've already programmed that in. You can see here that this machine actually makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 suits, 12 different types of armor, and probably 16 once I've gotten all of the perks that I need. But over here I have listed only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of armor. Combat M is medium, Combat H is heavy, Synth medium and heavy. So you can see that Synth heavy was not an option I could choose from, so obviously I'm missing a perk in order to make that armor. There are lots of types of armor that I'm not interested in making. I don't want to make leather armor, I don't want to make raider armor, because those things you can find anywhere. And really the whole purpose of this manufacturing factory is to make things for my settlers. So for example, everybody I send to Sanctuary is going to be dressed in Minuteman clothing, and they'll probably have a Minuteman duster. And I might want to create a settlement where everybody's wearing synth armor for whatever reason. So I've only programmed the building to make these sorts of armor that I'm interested in making. What that means is that when I flip this switch for synth armor, what were the components again? I forgot. Let's look. synth armor medium. Aluminum, adhesive, steel, and ballistic fiber. Okay. So what this switch will do, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires coming into it. One of them is a power wire. The other 4 are for one of each of the 4 components required to make synth medium armor, or heavy. They use the same components, just heavy uses more of them. So this wire, for example, heads to, let me see if I can trace it. It's to there, and then heads to there. Ballistic fiber. So when I flip this switch, what it'll do is it sends a signal up through these wires over to ballistic fiber, which then opens the ballistic fiber hopper. And same thing with the other wires, which are aluminum and steel, and I've already forgotten what else. So it only opens the hoppers that I need to make synth medium armor. So what I want to do, now that I have the main switch on, you can see this green light here. That means that this switch is powered on, which you can also see by the word on there. And so it's sending power to every secondary switch, which is this clothing. You can see the little red light there, means there's energy to it, but it's not actually powered on. So that's off. As opposed to like these here, you can see there's no lights at all, which means there's no energy coming to them. If I flip the switch, nothing will happen. See, nothing happens. Because these switches, these tertiary switches, are all wired directly into the secondary switches, such as this one, armor. Same thing with power armor and explosives and ammunition, which I haven't shown you yet, but I will. And then 1, 2, 3 guns. Same thing. They're all wired up pretty much the same way, except that something like a laser musket requires, I think, 9 components, or a Gauss rifle requires 10. So there are a lot more wires to different hoppers, as you can see. Anyway, I'm going to flip on this armor switch, and I'll show you what happens. But before I do that, I'll show you what the main one does. Besides energizing the secondary switches, the main power switch turns on the conveyor belts. And I forgot to show you before, but the conveyor belt down on the first floor was powered off. It wasn't running. But now you can see that the main power switch turned on all those conveyor belts. Some of them don't animate just because they're so huge. This building is so huge that I don't think the computer has the power to do that. But the conveyor belt is running, as you can see if I stand on it. Here I go. This will be my little barracks area for my settlers, my workers, when I get them. I'll try to decorate it nicely for them. This is part of my ammunition manufacturing, which I'll show you. But when I hit this armor switch, now I've programmed it into the computer. I told the computer what I want. When I flip this armor switch, what that does is, besides powering up these tertiary, these third tier switches, is that it closes all the gates upstairs that I need to send components to the right machine. So, when all my components come up from the first floor, they hit this barrier and they move on down, hit this barrier, move on down, hit this barrier, and they just keep on moving in this direction until they hit this one, and then they go into the armor machine. And once they're forged, they go into this conveyor storage, and then I'll have my piece of synth medium armor. So the next thing I want to do is flip that tertiary switch. Before I do that though, I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to change the output of the hoppers. I'm going to tell it to drop one component every, let's say, 10 seconds, just so that I don't get overwhelmed while I'm showing you what this does. So, now let's make it 5 seconds. No, 10 is good. We'll do 10. So, when I flip this switch, now what's happened is down on the first floor, the 4 hoppers I need have been opened. Steel, aluminum, ballistic fiber, and what was the last one? Leather? I don't remember. And those items are being sent one every 10 seconds down this conveyor belt. So let's see. Nothing's happening over here. That's good. Oh, something happened there. So this is ballistic fiber. You can see that door is open. So it's dropping out a piece of ballistic fiber one every 10 seconds. There's another one. Okay. And the stuff I don't need, what is this? This is aluminum. So again, it should be dropping one piece of aluminum every 10 seconds. There it goes. Things I don't need, like, well, adhesive I need. So it's dropping that as well. But I do not need acid, so you can see that door stays closed. And the way I do that is, or the way I accomplish that is with these wires here. As I showed you the one that went over to ballistic fiber, which is this one here, and what that does, it comes here, this one probably. What that does is it comes out the back of the wall, goes down to this, and then this conduit leads it down to the ballistic fiber hopper, whichever one that is, and so it only opens that particular hopper. So you can see here I've got 16 of these conduits on this side and then 15 on the other side, and each of these leads to just one hopper. So you can see here this hopper is, what is this? Fiberglass. Comes up to here and then goes that way and along the ceiling to that wall over there, which is where my control room is. And so then I can use my whatever recipe I need. I can connect to just the right hoppers. Pretty cool. Let's go this way. So I don't know if we have enough yet. Let me shut this off. Here's that lag. Okay. Did I make a piece? Nope, I didn't make any synth armor yet. Adhesive, ballistic fiber, aluminum, steel. I don't know why there's copper there. And we still have some parts coming out. Or coming in, I should say. But you can see, it all comes up, and as I said, comes out this way, right on down the line. You can see this wiring here is really, really messy. One of these days I might clean this up, or try to. Kind of a big job. Oh, there we go, the machine's doing something. So we've made a piece of left arm. And we may actually get a second part out of this, maybe. One kind of downside, which is unavoidable, is that I don't need the same amount of every component. For example, I don't remember the numbers, but I might need, say, 7 adhesives and 10 steels and 5 aluminums. So there will be parts left over. There's a right leg. There might be stuff left over in this machine, in which case I just have to take it out and bring it back to the beginning. Or I could just leave it there for the next set of armor, I suppose. Let's see if we can get a third component out of this. Maybe? Looks like we're nearing the end of our little journey here. What do we got there? Some ballistic fiber, some aluminum. I think we're short of adhesive. Or no, probably short of steel. I need more steel to make something else. Okay, well, we got 2 pieces out. We got a right leg and a left arm. It's not too bad. In reality, if I was making stuff for real instead of just demonstrating, what I would do is I would time the opening of the tertiary switch so that I got only the right amount of components that I needed. For example, if I needed 10 aluminums, I had 1 aluminum per second, or 1 component per second, I'd just hold it open for 10 seconds, which is why I closed it earlier. But now that we're all done, I'll just shut this off, and I'll go ahead and shut off my main switch too. And we've gone dark again. So the next and probably the last thing I'll show you is this 3rd floor, which is my ammunition plant. Kind of a miniature version of this entire factory, because I put the breaking down and the building up again into 1 floor instead of 4. But I start with my spare ammunition, stuff I don't use, like 38 and shotgun ammo. And 5mm. I don't use any of the guns that require that ammunition, so I kind of dump it all into this vacuum hopper, and it gets sucked into this machine, this ammunition scrapper, to be recycled. And once it's recycled, it comes along this conveyor belt to this storage unit where it stays until I need it. And then, because this machine, just like the other 2 scrappers upstairs, or downstairs I should say, it doesn't scrap everything, I use this vacuum hopper to pull it out into the second scrapper, which takes care of everything that the first one doesn't. Again, it goes up into this lift, comes right back down, and again I have an electrical separation so I can run the 2 machines semi-independently. This one the vacuum hopper is not electrically separate, so I would have to make sure that this first scrapper was completely done with everything that it could scrap, and then turn on the second part to get everything that it can't scrap. And the reason I did it that way is because this conveyor belt has to be running if I run the second part, Otherwise the stuff would just fall down and just kind of plop here and make a big pile and then eventually collect on the floor. So I've wired it in such a way that the ammo scrap 2 is actually a tertiary switch. In other words, it cannot run unless ammo scrap 1 is also running. So, now that I've turned all that on, you can see that the ammo scrap 1 conveyor belt is running, and ammo scrap 2 conveyor belt is also running. So everything that comes out of that second machine falls onto this and goes into the storage unit. Lag. Okay, now when I'm ready to actually make ammo, I turn on this machine. This is my vacuum hopper, and that's controlled with this switch here. So this ammo manufacturing pulls all of the stuff stored here and sends it off to my ammunition making machines and ammunition plants. I have 2 of them. This one makes all of the standard ammunition, 10mm, 44, 45, 308, and this one is for, they call it a foreign plant, and that is for the 7.62 and the 4570 and a bunch of other ones from the DLCs. And this switch here just kind of flips between one machine and the other, and of course the output to conveyor storage. I ran this machine to make sure everything worked, and I ended up making quite a lot of 4570 ammo, which is okay. If I didn't use it, I could still use this to make a profit, because this 4570 uses copper and fertilizer, which is what you get when you break down 38 ammo. So I broke down all my 38 ammo and I used it to make 4570. And 4570 is a lot more valuable if I wanted to sell it. So, could be a profit-making machine as well. And then if I want to, see, I can make 10mm, I can make the 2mm for the Gauss rifle, 308, 44, 50 caliber, and so on and so forth. And if I want to, if I don't have enough ammunition to scrap, what I can do is I can flip any one of those switches, any one of these 5 switches, and it turns on the hoppers that are downstairs, sends it up to the 4th floor, it sends it all the way around past all the machines, down this conveyor belt where it drops on to this conveyor belt and then into the machine. So I actually have 2 sources of raw material to make these ammunition, which is, I think it's kind of cool. So I never have to worry about running out of bullets. And in a nutshell, I mean, quite a big nutshell, but that is the manufacturing plant. I can break down absolutely every junk item in the game, and I could, in theory, build every item in the game if I changed out my machines upstairs. But this is very versatile, and like I said, its purpose is, well, its main purpose was just to see if I could do it. It was a big job and it was a lot of fun to make, and just a very, very big challenge to make all of these parts work together smoothly. And then secondary purpose is to make sure that all of my settlers, once I start getting them, are properly outfitted. I am at level 32 right now, and the fun thing is that at least 25 of those levels came just from building this factory. I've done almost no adventuring, I've killed almost nobody. I haven't completed any missions, well, just a few missions, but not very many. So just building this factory gave me a ton of levels. Probably 25 of my 32, I would estimate. But it looks quite nice in the daytime. Last time we ran around here it was nighttime, so let's take one more trip around. And I had originally wanted to have that vacuum hopper come right up to the doorway of this so that I could just take everything from my workshop and just spit it right out the door, but it ended up not working out that way. So I had to move it, what, a unit and a half this way. But then, yes, that's not too bad. There it is again in the daytime. And of course the original pond is right down here. You can see it. I put some lights there to make it visible. But I might do something with this. I might, I don't know, take out part of this floor and do something interesting if I can think of anything interesting to do. Maybe put a water pump there or something. But that's about it. I hope you have enjoyed. And if I ever make a project this big again, I will certainly post a video.